Record. All right. Hello, everyone. What a great night to kick off our very first Sunday Spotlight virtual
Hello.
masterclass. It's Oscar night. So, when so many of the entertainment industry's biggest stars are gathering together in Hollywood, the rest of us watch and we learn. And this is our guest tonight is the perfect person to actually kick this off with. She's a friend of mine, but also was in company with me on Broadway, and she has the best fashion sense of any Broadway person I've ever met.
Thank you.
And so she's our very first guest star. This is where the new Paradigm Theater Company is a virtually based, so far, professional theater company. We hire a lot of Broadway folks to do performances custom built for a lot of different places, but one of our specialties is helping other nonprofits raise money. We have a big mentoring outreach, and while we are a nonprofit and we accept donations and so forth, we have a board of directors, an adult board of directors. We also have a youth board, a new youth board, and we've had about 4 or 5 meetings already, and these are teenagers who want to learn how to be community leaders. They're also obviously very interested in theater. And we have 7 wonderful youth board members. You see 4 of them right there at one of their meetings. We have 7 of them. And today I'm going to help train 2 of them to be producers. Nathan Clift, who is a sophomore at Trumbull High School, is one of our presenters and interviewers, and they're going to interview Leenya, as well as Matt Sweeney, and he is a junior at Stanford High School. So, Nathan, I am going to hand it over to you and let you say hello to Leenya. You can see her credits right there, her Broadway credits. And again, we really are grateful to Leenya. Hi, Leenya.
Hello.
Say hello to everybody out there. And we've got a lot of students, but also adults on the phone call who want to learn from you as well. And you can see a
We're
couple.
all students, Kristen. We're
Well,
forever going to be students.
she's spoken like a true performer who's also a teacher, and you can see her wonderful credits. She's been on Broadway in Warhorse and Cyrano, and with Kevin Kline, ooh, and of course John Doyle's company with me as Jenny, otherwise known as the pot smoking wife, and
Yep,
then
that's right.
Penny revival of Cabaret, and she was on there with Alan Cummings. That's really cool. And she's going to be in Pump Boys and Dinettes when that actually does come to Broadway, which is great.
Yep.
Nate, I'm going to hand it off to you. Say hello to Lena.
Hello.
Hi, Leenya.
Hi, Nate.
Hi. How did you get started in theater? What school did you attend?
This picture right here that you're looking at is of me as Anita in West Side Story in Rocky Mountain High School. So I was a senior in high school in Colorado, and I think I started doing theater when I was in 7th grade in community theater in Fort Collins, Colorado, and I just fell in love with it instantly. And did a lot of like pretty much community theater every season. I did another one, and then I just continued on in high school. And then when I went to college, I continued studying, but I actually studied more in opera, but took as much theater and dance as I could. And then I was a violin minor. So that was the University of Colorado in Boulder. And so I kept kind of a pretty varied background um, throughout my education in a lot of ways.
Why did you
So,
uh, why did you choose that university?
well, it was about an hour from my house, first of all. But actually, I had applied to a bunch of different schools, including NYU, USC. Um, CU offered me pretty much a full ride scholarship,
Ah,
and I part of it was if you ever go to Boulder, Colorado, you will fall in love with it as well. Like the Flatirons and the mountains. Like every morning, I would go running up into the mountains, like from my apartment.
mhm.
So that was a part of it, but also it had at the time. I mean, I'm assuming it does now too, a very good music department, but pretty competitive and was pretty cool about me trying to do everything still.
You're a
Of
double
course, it
major.
was always like you have to choose, and I never did, and they were still pretty cool about that. So yeah, I was a double major for the first 2 years, and then the last 2 years, I finally decided I wanted to make violin my minor because I wanted to be on the stage instead of in the pit. That was
Right.
my justification at the time.
Right. And you went to school with what other person that you've been in shows with?
Mr. Fred Rose.
Yep. Fred was in Company. And Fred
Yep,
played
he'd be
who
my
in
husband
Company?
in company.
I think that is the most fun story. All
And
right.
we also we were in Merrily We Roll Along together actually as well. So
Nice.
and Cyrano de Bergerac and Cabaret. So I guess we're meant to be together. It's
I
good.
think so.
Yeah.
All right, Nate.
How how did you get started auditioning in New York City?
I actually went to LA first when I graduated from college because I knew family there and I was not as overwhelmed with the what I thought would be the size of the city because I was, it's more suburban, although I just was lost there. So, and finally people said, I went and got a cruise ship gig this is in LA. This is in Orange County. I was doing a dinner theater and a cruise ship, and finally people said, you need to move to New York. And I was like, oh, okay, I think I have like one cousin there and a friend. And I came to New York City for 1 week. I bought a plane ticket and I came to New York City and I went to I picked up a backstage paper, which I don't know if you guys know about that periodical, but you can still get it. And it lists all the auditions, I think non-equity as well as equity. And I went to 3 auditions in the paper. And one of them was for My Fair Lady. I was for Eliza and My Fair Lady, and I went in to the audition, and they were like, "Oh, can you come back on Friday?" I was like, "Oh, I'm flying back to California." They're like, "Okay, we'll have fun." And then they call me back, and they're like, "Can you change your ticket?" And I said, "I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to change my ticket." And so I ended up coming back to the callback, and they cast me. It was a non-equity tour of My Fair Lady that actually lasted an entire year. It went all over the United States, Canada, and also to Asia. And so
Wow.
by the time I moved back here in '95, I had a lot of contacts, friends, and then places I could sublet, which is really key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Awesome.
Hey Leenya, this is Matt.
Yes. Hi, Matt.
Just curious. I mean, we know that LA is a huge film and TV hub.
Yes.
So, did you ever consider taking that path instead of, the musical theater?
I did. When I was there, I felt like I just didn't. I feel like music theater is a little bit more. You can be a little more DIY. You can be more do
Mm-hmm.
it yourself, and you can like show up, find where to go, and show up with your resume and your picture, and like do an audition. But like film and TV is a lot more like. I mean, I don't know for sure, but this is how it felt to me. It just you had to know the right person or show up to the right party and be able to invite it to this and like network with this. And I just didn't have any kind of connections that I could do that. And so in LA, I
Mm-hmm.
was pretty lost. And in New York City, it's just a lot easier to figure out. I mean, there's a lot more theater here, which is definitely
Right.
what my training is. And of course, I would love to do film and TV. Um, and I say yes to it anytime it comes my way. But it's definitely can be sometimes. I'm in a music theater pile as far as the casting directors go, and so I don't get called in as much as I would like to. But yes, I would love to do that. Absolutely.
Hey,
Cool.
Lena, we have a question
Yes.
from Gwendolyn Jones. She wanted to know.
Okay.
She said, "Oh my gosh, Lena, was that with National Touring Musicals?"
Yes, it was Gwendolyn.
If I could unmute her, I can't unmute her. Okay, well, I'll try to learn how to unmute
Well,
you.
just translate for me, because yes,
All right.
has she worked for them?
She says she quit that. Okay. Oh, yes, she said. Okay, good. All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's a discussion for offline. We will talk
Yes, exactly. No,
offline.
I had a great time. I had a really great time. I definitely did. I haven't worked for them since, but that's not because, of anything
Uh-huh.
bad. Yeah.
Okay.
Tell us about how you got your start playing the violin.
You probably would want to talk to my parents more about that because I was 4 years old. Suzuki, there's a Suzuki violin method that a lot of kids are still, thankfully, having access to, and that we can. It's a very good method to start kids out on, and that's what I was doing when I was 4, and learned how to play violin classically. But then I ended up because my dad was like a big folk singer. I also started in on folk and everything too. So
That's
I
great.
guess that's the answer to that.
What's that picture right there?
That is a picture of me playing with one of my Irish bands, Finn's Fury. I haven't played with them for a while, but I played with Gale Force and Finn's Fury for about 10 years collectively.
Hmm.
And we would do festivals and pubs around Long Island and New York and Connecticut and New Jersey.
Wow.
It was pretty fun, pretty amazingly fun. So I
And
rocked it out.
I've heard Leenya play in a couple of different things other than just company, and she's awesome. And by
Thanks.
the way, you guys, again, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in. Oh, I see Lisa
Yeah, I
has
can see
one.
him.
Oh,
I see
Lisa,
the police.
I'm sorry. Lisa typed that question in again because I just hit the trash can button. Sorry. We're all getting used to the webinar feel here. She will
New
type that
technology.
question in again to me while we talk about the chalks. Tell us about the chalks.
Yes, so the Chalks are a group that I've been with for about 10 years now. We are a trio of singer, songwriter, comedy, improv women who have written a show, actually a number of shows, but we finally had a script that was produced at the Alliance Theater. It was a holiday show, and it was done this last season at the Alliance Theater in Atlanta, Georgia,
That's
and
awesome.
it was called Holidays with the Chalks. And we all play our own instruments as well as it's very funny and kooky and
You kind of
it's
have
a
a
fun
different
time.
persona.
Not too bad.
What
Yes,
is
my character is
Yeah, what
Belle
is
the
your character's
Chalk.
name?
Belle the Chalk. And she's never been married, and she's from Oklahoma and everything like that. So she loves kind of all the man.
Right.
So that's how she is.
Now, Lisa Durkee wants to know if you want to work on Broadway, how important is it to play a musical instrument?
I call it on Broadway. It's sort of like being able to dance. So it's another uh, threat, as you call it. Like, are you going to be a triple threat, it's kind of like being a quadruple threat. Although my dancing is not so great, so I wouldn't actually call it a threat. So at this point, it's another. It's a little bit more than having a special skill,
Hmm.
but it's
Great.
it's helped me a lot. I mean, it can also hinder me because a lot of times I end up in the pile of people who they need to play instruments. And
Right.
I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah, I can act and sing, so I can go in for things I'm not playing for.
Right. And this
But
uh and this
yeah,
regional show right here is which part are you playing there?
I'm Aldonza in Manna La Mancha. This had nothing to do with instrument playing. No, I had a blast.
Mhm.
This was at the Art Center of Coastal Carolina. If anyone has a chance to work there, I recommend it highly. It's located in Hilton Head Island in
Oh,
South
nice.
Carolina, and yeah, you're pretty much at the beach every day. But
Woohoo!
this role was, I have to say, one of my favorites ever. Because I mean, what a transformation! This is
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I may have sent you my Dulcinea photo,
Uh-huh.
but Alfonso goes from this to Dulcinea, and it's about your self-esteem sort of being
Right.
patched up every night. So it was really an amazing.
Kevin Durkee wants to know when was the first time you knew you wanted to be on Broadway?
As soon as I knew what it was. And growing up in Indiana and Colorado, I'm not sure how soon I knew. Although I remember seeing the movie of Jesus Christ Superstar when I was 9, and being in a regional productions. I would play Eliza, or I know I played Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. I think when I was 9, in a like a
Right.
daycare center production, and I think that may have been the first time I was like, this is what I want to do forever.
Wow, good.
Yeah.
So, you have performed in a few shows directed by John Doyle. How does his style differ from other directors?
John is very, this is a weird word that I'm not even sure I'm using correctly, but he's very organic. So he doesn't start out with thinking, okay, so here's how I want to stage each scene. And every time we'll work on a scene, you have to know that whatever you figure out that day, it's going to be completely different in about 2 weeks. But by having you go through stuff and learn things in a certain way, it comes into your experience as the character, and so it all adds for this very, very enriched experience when you're performing, when you finally set the blocking. He doesn't even like to use the word blocking, because he thinks the word block has kind of a stops your creativity, and he doesn't even like to use that. So yes, he uses instruments, but even if he doesn't use instruments, it's still the same process where you're playing, you're experimenting, you're not performing ever. Like even when you perform, you're not performing. You're always rehearsing, always finding something new, always delving into something. What I found was interesting too is like with both Merrily Roll Along, which is these pictures are from, and also Company, which Kristen will remember. There would be a day he'd be like, okay, let's make this. This is going to be the story of Amy. So everyone has to, let's all do a run through, but we're going to look at Amy and see what she's going through and think about how, what her experience might be like. And then the next run through, we would say, let's make this about David, and we would look at, and really follow David. And it was really, really interesting, like how you really delve into each your character and your ensemble work through the way that he works together, and it's like nothing else. It's amazing. It's really
Stephanie Durkee wants to know what it was like the first time you performed on a Broadway stage.
well. That would have been Cabaret, and what was strange is, I guess, Cabaret was an interesting experience because I don't think any of us had any idea how amazingly popular and groundbreaking it was going to be. And it felt, I mean, every night with Cabaret, there was like, you could see about a dozen different, really famous people in the audience.
Right.
And they were right up next to you because it was such a small theater. It was in the Henry Miller Theater, which now is the Henry Miller, but it's completely, they kept the facade, but they've changed it completely, for the roundabout.
Wow. Cool.
And it was, I don't think I quite knew what I was in for, even in our first previews, until about opening. And then it became clear that this was going to be a cult following kind of thing that I was not in any way prepared for. So I was kind of lucky in that way. It was a really amazingly creative show to have as my first Broadway show.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
It's kind of like a rock concert.
Warm,
Good.
War-
Go ahead, Nate.
so Warm Horse was such a different type of show. What extra skills did you need for this show, and how hard was it to master?
I had to go to a puppetry workshop for 2 weeks before we even had the rest of the cast show up, because I'd never done puppetry. Okay, I had built a puppet. I would expect, like when I was a kid, I was like, let's make some puppets, and I used to like to sew and stuff. But I never thought of, oh, this is a very difficult and amazing art form. I never really, I would put on puppet shows, but I never delved into it as much. And so this was really amazing, and it took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, let me tell you. I'll just point out that the two boys who were performing, baby Joey, with me here in this picture.
You're in the front, right?
I'm the front. Believe it or not, I play a little boy. And this was about a year ago, so yeah. But these boys are, much younger than I am, so every once in a while I'd be like, oh my God, let Grandma breathe. Just stop running so fast. So, because I was understudying Rose, like the mom, and like the Paulette, the French mom, and, the song people and stuff too, so. But the puppetry, I have to say, was pretty amazing, and I got to study with some of the best in the world, Adrian Kohler and Basil Jones, who are from the Handspring Puppetry Company. I mean, they are the best, some of the best puppeteers in the entire world. And they not only are the best puppeteers, but they also puppet creators, and they created and designed these puppets, and they're like none other. But I tell you, what was really fascinating about doing this is that, you're looking at this picture and you're thinking, it's so weird. I mean, unless you have seen the show, then you understand what I'm talking about. But you think, oh, I'm seeing the puppeteers. It's kind of boring. Like, how can I look at the puppet? But eventually, if we're doing our job right, we actually disappear. And so I actually say that one of my special skills now is to become invisible.
Nice. Nice.
I don't know if you've seen it, the movie, that seen the show, but that's how it is. It's almost like you forget that these puppeteers are there, and it's a huge skill to be able to do that, to just disappear.
Yeah.
And every night I was like, how can I make this more horse-like? How can I be, less human, less? And and every night there was something more that I could explore. It was really amazing.
That's awesome.
I actually got a chance to see it at the Lincoln Center, and
Yes, yes.
I think the picture that was just on the screen may have been the first time I actually saw the Puppeteers. Like it was
Yeah.
that.
Oh wow! See,
Organic.
there you go.
It was
Good.
like that organic, and it was
Yeah. And you
super
just like, you
impressed.
see it at first and you're like, oh, that's weird. They're like bigger than Puppet, and we'll see them the whole time. And why are they not in black? And then
Right.
all of a sudden you don't care at all. So if we're doing our jobs right, so.
Right.
What advice would you give young performers about the theater business?
Learn how to save your money.
Good.
Learn how to live cheaply.
Hmm.
I think that the tricky thing is I was in cabaret for, 3 years with a couple years off and break. And so you'd think, oh, and I was able to afford a better apartment and buy a couch and, like a keyboard. But like I still knew that I shouldn't spend it all. And I saved a lot of money because I knew that like I just listened to other people say, listen, no matter how successful, I mean, okay, maybe if I got like a TV series or something, then, I might be a little bit in like Flynn. But in theater, it's like
Right.
you can go for 3 years and you'll save up you better have saved up some money because there might be another 3 years after that where you're still looking for jobs again. And it doesn't matter. You're kind of always going back to start to
Hmm.
be to continue to audition, and it feels like, wait a minute, I've already made it. This is my, fourth Broadway show. Like, why am I still going to auditions? Why am I still,
Hmm.
but it's just, you always kind of go back to um, uh,
Stage one.
stage one, and that's a hard thing to realize after the first one.
Uh-huh.
But once you realize, you just have to, no matter, there's so many hardships in this business, you have to like look at ways to embrace them and say,
Like,
oh, good, well, I get to start over again and I get to invent myself again.
yeah.
Um, Last show I was an ingenue, but now I'm gonna be, I'm gonna be a supporting actor who smokes pot and is a mom. And then this next one, maybe I'm a bad woman who's like, this
Yeah.
really naughty girl who's, desperately trying to cling on to her youth and sexuality. You know what I mean? So like, instead of thinking, oh crap, I have to reinvent myself, you can think, yay, I get to do something really completely different.
Cool.
But it's hard.
Yeah.
Just answer your question.
Leenya, we have about 4 questions. One, Michael Buckout wants to know, do you get stage fright? If so, do you have any personal rituals or traditions for keeping it at bay?
I have to say at this point, I welcome stage fright. I'm like, oh, please, thank you, thank you. It's something to harness.
Uh-huh.
And I learned a lot from being this puppeteer and warhorse. And every time you get nervous or you have to do something really difficult, instead of like freaking out and getting tense, I breathe, I inhale, I let go all tension, and everything will work itself out.
All right. Matthew Woodside wants to know, he says, hey, so as a high school performer, there's this thing called favoritism. We all see it. How can we avoid this and find alternative places to perform? There's that in Broadway too, by the way.
Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's like you just get used to it.
Yeah.
And just keep going. I mean, just keep going and write your own things, write your own stuff, work on your own things, put on a cabaret, like,
Start
rent a
your own
space,
theater.
have people come, and literally it's just about like, again, embracing like, look, I'm not going to be cast in as the leading man, but maybe that means I have something else to learn that's going to be that other person isn't going to learn.
Right.
So it's about turning over everything and looking at it in a new way, in a positive way, which I'm not always successful at, but
I think you're pretty positive. Shayna Arsenal wants to know, what was the most difficult part of your theater career and how did you overcome those obstacles?
uh, Thinking that, whenever you get to a place where you're like, how am I going to pay my bills? That you have to look back and go, oh, wait, I've always survived in the past and it's going to be okay.
Right.
And it sort of gets easier because you can look back, but um, yeah, it's just a matter of not taking things as personal. That's the hard thing, is like not taking the rejection personally.
Right.
And that's a constant struggle.
Nate?
What do you wish they had taught you in school that you had to learn the hard way in the real world?
Gosh, a lot of things. I feel like my education, like, they kind of taught me how to write a resume, which I figured out from other people. But um, uh, I remember hearing somebody saying, take a lot of dance class, which, I didn't really get in school, which was good, and that was true.
Mm-hmm.
But how to deal with rejection, how to keep going, how to deal with your finances. I think that was a big thing. Just
Yeah.
not knowing. People were like, well, I guess you could find another way to, make a living, which is cool.
Right.
But and if I can't make a living at acting or performing, then I'll teach privately here and there. But I've been pretty lucky. I haven't had to work in a restaurant since I was, in my way early 20s. But yeah, so now we go to this next question. How do you handle rejection associated with the business? You just keep going and kind of accept the rejection. You have to, it's like going on dates. You have to just go on a lot of dates and realize that it's not about you so much, and you just go, go, go. And then it doesn't sting so much every time. You know what I mean? And also know that there's another bus coming. If you
Right.
miss a bus, there's another one coming.
Yeah.
And sometimes when they don't hire you, it's because they wanted a blonde, or they
Right.
wanted somebody who was reminded them of their grandmother when she was young. Or, you never know. And you can't guess, you can't assume, you can't take it personally. There's actually a book that I really recommend called The Four Agreements that has those three things in it.
Yep.
Always do your best. Don't take things personally. Don't make assumptions, and be impeccable with your word. Those are the
Yep.
four agreements. And the book actually is very small, and it's really good about all these things. And
Yep.
that is actually a good answer for this question, that book.
That is good. And kind of on the heels of that, Lisa Durkin wants to know, what advice would you give regarding how best to handle reviews, both good and bad? Do you read and do you read yours?
I always say I don't. I mean, actually, since I had a couple bad ones for a regional theater thing that I did a while ago, I was like, I don't read them anymore. But here's the thing, like, I know when I can read them. If I don't have a huge role and I know that, that I won't take things personally, I know I can sort of read them.
Yeah.
But I try my hardest to wait until the show is closed or until things are safer.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't always succeed because because in the end, unfortunately, reviews can make or break something for you, at least for the next couple of years. You can always get over a bad review, believe me. But yeah. So it's best not to read them if you can help it. That's all I'm going to say.
That's right. And you can connect with Leenya. See, we have her website up there and the chalks, and that's the cover of her CD. What would Leenya do? Leenya is she would bring in bags of clothes to us during company that she had gotten like at different thrift stores, and of course I love that too. So I would and she would just let any of us girls and guys, I guess too, choose what we wanted out of there. So I have
that's right. Some guys found some of my red sparkly pants.
I have, exactly, and I call it Leenya wear.
Well, and I'll have what I call a bitch and swap, which I have, because sometimes we can't afford to go and buy new stuff. So I'll be like, hey guys, it's like the season's over. You've gone through your closet. Bring your stuff over to my house. Let's bring some wine. We'll like talk for a while, and then we'll just dive into these clothes. And people go home with like, a bunch of stuff. But let me explain a couple of things. First of all, Leenya.com right now is a little bit under construction, so don't worry about that. I'm actually literally like this weekend just. The other one closed down, so I have to fix that up. So don't worry about that. The Chalks is totally going. And then the next one is my blog about how to live like a celebrity on an artist budget.
I love it.
I have not posted for a while, but now that you've posted this, it's going to make me post it.
Good.
And I do love it. I just haven't, I guess, yeah, I just haven't posted
right.
for a while. But it has some good tips in it, and I totally recommend it.
I'm going to launch a couple of polls that everybody can answer in real time, and I'll continue to ask some of the questions, and you can answer them as we launch. Everybody answer a couple of these polls. This would be great. There we go. Let's see. While they're answering those questions, Leenya, we
Okay.
can answer some more of their questions. Let's see. Um, Matthew says he's personally a hot mess, pretty much big sloppy mess when I dance. Do you have any? Do you have any? I'm trying
That's
to read
awesome.
this. Any tips on how he can get better without having to pay tons of money?
Take class, unfortunately. I
Yeah,
don't know. I mean, are there like online, maybe there's online classes you can take, but I
I'm
have to
sure
say
there's
it's
something on YouTube.
probably, but you need to have somebody sort of in the room giving you adjustments, right? And telling
Right.
you that's not it, that's not it, you're still a big sloppy mess. That could
Okay.
happen, you know?
Sorry, Matt.
Here's our.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be places, I don't know, maybe you can get friends together. Here's the thing, you could say, I have, 5 people who are in the same situation, and one of them is a little bit better dancer, and let's all like have class, let's hold class like once a week, because
Right.
listen, I'm all for finding ways to do things on a budget, but
Right.
there's got to be places in your area that you can take class for, $10 a class, and take one a week would be great, but like, if you can do one a month, that's something.
That's
Or go to a gym. Like sometimes gyms have, even if you're taking like an aerobics class or something, you're
mhm.
still working on picking up moves, that somebody else has given you.
Great. Great.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. So those of you, it looks like a lot of people thought the registration was very easy, and that are very likely to recommend this next week. And by the way, here's what you want to subscribe to. This is the Youth Theater, the Youth Board's blog. It's nptbreakaleg.blogspot.com. Once a week, they review a show that they've seen, or a movie, or a ballet, or something. The youth board does that, and then once a week we post about who our next guest is going to be. And this is our next week's guest is Alan Rust. He's the director of
Yes.
theater division, professor of theater at the University of Hartford, the Hart Theater Division. And he's going to, we're right in the midst of, I teach at the Hart School as well, in the midst of auditions, just like all colleges are. And it might be nice to hear from somebody who's the head of a department and who's doing all those auditions and what they specifically look for. And so if you sign up for the youth blog, which I'll go back there again so you can write that down, you'll be able to get the news about every Sunday which guests we have. Now, sometimes there'll be Broadway stars like Leenya, sometimes there'll be TV stars, sometimes there'll be casting directors from Broadway, sometimes there'll be producers, sometimes there'll be heads of departments, sound guys. There'll be all sorts of things that'll be interesting about the entertainment business. It's not just about theater, it's about everything. So when you sign up for this blog, you will get, again, and we also have a newsletter that we're going to be sending out. And because we want to be able, if you're at a high school in the area in Connecticut, we want to be able to advertise your musical as well. So if you sign up for nptbreakaleg.blogspot.com, you will also have a chance to have your high school, their show, let's say Amity is doing Sweeney Todd, and they will be listed on that newsletter so that people will come see your show. At the end of this, there's also going to be a survey, because it helps us to tweak the Sunday Spotlight. This was our first one. To become more useful to you, more educational. And it isn't just for students. This is for anyone who could benefit from listening to this. And we just want to make it as interesting as possible. We'll take a couple more questions here.
I have a
Leanne,
question.
yep.
I have the Oscars on right now with the sound off.
Uh-huh.
But who is Seth MacFarlane, and why is he actually hosting the Oscars?
He's the guy that is Family Guy. He does all the voices on Family Guy.
All right.
Yeah, and I think it's because he's kind of interesting. Thank you. And I'm going to rewind
okay.
mine and hear it. Lynn Vitari wants to. Oh, I did it again. Lynn Vitare. She wants to know if you watch Smash and if you think it represents Broadway realistically.
Oh gosh, okay. I watched like half an episode once, and I just can't bring myself to watch it. But I have to say, it's the same thing with American Idol. It's like there's something that's a little too close, but also like too far, and I'm like, I'm sure that but yeah, I know that the writers are taking things that are actually happening on Broadway, like, certain shows being closed or being postponed and all that stuff.
Uh-huh.
But I just feel the cattiness. Here's what I don't like, is the cattiness and the backstabbing, which I know, of course, it goes on, but it's like something.
Yep.
It's too much and it's too
Right.
dependent on that, and I feel like it doesn't really represent our community, which
Right.
actually does a lot of like raising money for really good charities and actually is pretty
Nonprofits. Yep.
good of working together. And
Yeah.
I have to say, as much as, let me tell you, I both Glee and Smash, I'm like, yes, good, let's get new people interested in Broadway. If it does that, I'm all psyched for it. But I do feel like it doesn't really represent our heart very well.
Yeah.
Does that answer your
It
question?
does. And
Okay.
Gwendolyn Jones had a good suggestion for the dance for Matthew. Zumba. Taking some Zumba classes actually not a
Seriously.
little bit expensive, but it keeps
Seriously.
you moving.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
That's great. Well, so that we can keep this to a good. Oh, you know what? There is one more question I think is really good. Grant Benedict asked, "How necessary is it to get an agent right out of college? Is it beneficial?"
If you can, it's beneficial, but like I said, I used Backstage.
Yeah.
I use Backstage as my agent. It takes more work, and it definitely means that you have to go to these open calls, and you go and you show up and you sign up, and it's more work for you.
Yep.
But like, it also means you don't pay the 10%,
Right.
and you have to do more. I think it's almost better to sort of go for 6 months and like try out auditions before you sign up with anyone. You could send out a mailing
Hmm.
uh, to see if you could get anyone, and freelance for with
Hmm.
a couple people for a while. Just, it's like dating, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Right.
Um, and then, so I wouldn't sign on with anyone right away because you don't really necessarily know what you're looking for.
Right.
So it's not totally necessary,
And we
but
can submit ourselves now through so many different agencies and
you
stuff.
can. But
So.
let me also say that, like, right out of college, there is an immediate marketability for young roles, which people are always looking for. And
Right.
it also is a way, like, it's harder to break in when you're older because we think that, I mean, youth means, of course, you're not going to have any experience. So that's not a prerequisite. And so it's a really good time to break in.
Right.
Uh, so I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. It does. So, so that we can keep this at a nice half hour length. And you know what? During that survey, you can certainly comment if you think it should be a longer call. But we're just trying it out and tweaking it. And we want to
Sure,
thank
sure.
Leenya. Thank you for being our
Yay!
guest.
Good
I hope you,
questions, everyone.
yeah, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say about all the fashions at the Oscars.
I know. I wish I could just like continue like commenting on things.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
With
We
the
will do
sound
one of
bites.
those after this.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for tuning in, and I hope that you will spread the news about the Sunday Spotlight and suggest some guests that you would like to hear from as
Oh,
well.
that's a good idea. Great. Yeah.
And of course, you can always go to www.nptheater.org. That's the New Paradigm Theater's website, and check us out and see all of our videos and see what we're all about. Thanks a
Break
lot,
legs,
everyone.
everyone.
Good night.
Break legs.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you.